Listen to me. You need to disappear. Tonight. Before she destroys everything you have built with him. I am not running. Not from her. Not from rumors. Not from anything. You do not understand what is happening. His ex-fiancée is back. And she is claiming she is pregnant with his child. Do you know what that means for you?
Listen to me. You need to disappear. Tonight, before she destroys everything you have built with him. I am not running. Not from her. Not from rumors. Not from anything. You do not understand what is happening. His ex-fiancée is back, and she is claiming she is pregnant with his child. Do you know what that means for you? It means nothing. Whatever was between them ended years ago. Then God help you, because when she makes her move, and she will make her move, your entire world is about to collapse. So you are her, the African waitress. Who are you? Yoon Mireille, Jae-Hyun's fiancé, ex-fiancé. He told me about you. Did he tell you I am pregnant? For months along. His child, which means this little fantasy of yours, is over. If this story satisfies you, make sure you like and subscribe so you will not miss the next episode, because what happens next will have you on the edge of your seat. The Mediterranean glow of the Puget Sound had always reminded Selam Tesfaye of home. Not the exact same. Of course, the Red Sea coastline of Eritrea was warmer, the salt tang sharper, the sunsets painted in deeper golds and burnt oranges that seemed to set the horizon on fire. But something about the way light scattered across water at dusk, the way it transformed ordinary waves into liquid diamonds, made her heart ache in the most beautiful way. She was 26 years old, working double shifts at the Azure Pearl, an upscale waterfront restaurant in Seattle's Belltown neighborhood. The kind of place where a single entree cost more than what her mother spent on groceries for a week back in Asmara. The tips were good when the wealthy patrons felt generous. The hours were brutal, and her feet hurt so badly by closing time that she sometimes wondered if she would ever feel them again. That particular Thursday evening in late September, the restaurant was hosting a private event. The back terrace overlooking the water had been rented out entirely. Selam had been assigned to serve them, and from the moment she stepped onto that terrace, she understood this was different from the usual corporate dinners. Korean businessmen in suits that cost more than Selam made in 6 months. Expensive watches catching the candlelight. Cologne that probably came in bottles smaller than her thumb, but worth more than her rent. They spoke in rapid Korean, their voices low and controlled. And something about the way they carried themselves made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. These were not ordinary businessmen. The head of the table drew her attention immediately. Not because he was the loudest. He was not. He barely spoke at all. But the other men deferred to him constantly, watched him, waited for his reactions before they laughed or agreed, or even moved. Every gesture they made seemed calibrated around his approval. He was tall, probably 6'1", with a face that belonged in photographs. Sharp jaw, perfect bone structure, black hair styled with the kind of precision that suggested someone else did it for him every morning. But it was his eyes that made Selam's breath catch. Dark, so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and absolutely cold. Dangerous. That was the word that came to mind immediately. This man was dangerous. Selam served their courses with practiced efficiency. Appetizers of seared scallops and wagyu tartare. Main courses that required pronunciation guides she had memorized that morning. Wines that cost more per bottle than her monthly phone bill. She smiled when appropriate. Stayed invisible when necessary. She had been doing this job for 3 years. She knew how to read rooms, how to become part of the furniture, how to exist without really being there. What she did not know was how to read him, because every time she approached the table, his eyes found her, not in the way some men looked, not assessing her body, calculating her worth as entertainment, mentally undressing her. No, he looked at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle, like she was a question he could not answer, like she did not fit into any category he had. For people who serve him food, it made her nervous. And Selam Tesfaye did not get nervous. Have you ever felt someone's attention on you so intensely that it changed the way you moved, changed the way you breathed? That was what his gaze did to her. Made her hyper-aware of every step, every gesture. Every time she reached across the table to refill a water glass or clear a plate. The evening wore on. Drinks flowed. Business negotiations happened in rapid Korean that Selam caught none of, though she recognized the tension in certain exchanges. The way some of the men leaned forward with barely concealed aggression, while others sat back with calculated calm. The dangerous man at the head of the table controlled it all with barely a word. A raised eyebrow here, a subtle nod there. He was conducting them like an orchestra. And then around 10:30, everything changed. Selam was carrying a tray of desserts to the table. Creme brulee and chocolate souffle and delicate fruit tarts that looked almost too beautiful to eat. She was tired. Her feet were screaming. Her lower back ached from hours of standing. But she kept her smile in place, kept her movement smooth, kept being the invisible server the job required. One of the businessmen, the loudest one who had been drinking more than the others, pushed back from his seat without looking. His chair caught her hip with enough force to make her stumble. The tray tilted. The desserts began to slide. Selam tried to correct, tried to shift her weight, but she was already off balance, already exhausted, and her body betrayed her at the worst possible moment. The tray went flying. Plates shattered on the terrace floor, and Selam, overcorrecting in her attempt to save the dishes, stumbled backward toward the terrace railing. Time slowed down. She felt the metal hit her lower back, felt her center of gravity shift, felt the cold night air rush past her as she tipped over the edge, and then she was falling 20 feet. The terrace was 20 feet above the water. She knew this because she had overheard the restaurant manager bragging about it to guests. 20 feet of empty air between her and the dark surface of Puget Sound. The water hit her like concrete. The shock of cold drove every molecule of air from her lungs. She could not think, could not breathe, could not remember which way was up. The darkness was absolute. Her tired muscles refused to respond. The weight of her water-soaked clothes dragged her down, and she was sinking, sinking into nothing. This is how I die, she thought. The thought was strangely calm, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Alone, in cold water, so far from home. My mother will get a phone call from strangers telling her that her daughter drowned in a country she has never seen. The cold was everywhere, in her bones, in her blood, in the spaces between her thoughts. She could feel consciousness slipping away, feel herself becoming part of the darkness. Then hands, strong hands grabbing her arms, pulling her upward with a force that would not be denied, breaking the surface with her. And suddenly there was air and noise and someone shouting orders in Korean and lights dancing across the water and her lungs burning as she coughed up what felt like half the sound. Selam was being held against something solid, someone solid, arms wrapped around her from behind, keeping her head above water, keeping her from slipping back under. She coughed violently, seawater burning her throat, her eyes stinging with salt. Stay awake, the voice was commanding. Accented but clear. Look at me. Stay awake. She blinked the stinging salt from her eyes and turned her head and found herself looking into the face of a dangerous man from the head of the table. He was soaking wet. His expensive suit was ruined. His perfect hair was plastered to his forehead. Water dripped from his jaw, and his dark eyes, those cold, absorbing eyes, were burning with something that looked almost like fear. I am awake, she managed, though her teeth were chattering so violently the words came out fractured. I am okay. You fell 20 feet into freezing water. His arms tightened around her as someone above them threw a rope down from somewhere. You are not okay. Later, she would learn that he had jumped in after her, without hesitation, that his men had tried to stop him, that he had been in the water before anyone else had even processed what was happening. That the head of one of the most powerful organizations on the West Coast had ruined a $15,000 suit to save a waitress he did not know. But in that moment, all Selam knew was that she was alive, that someone had saved her, that the dangerous man's heart was hammering against her back as he held her in the cold, dark water. They pulled them out together. His men had found a service ladder at the marina edge, and by the time they reached solid ground, The restaurant staff was in chaos. Someone had called an ambulance. Someone else was screaming about liability and lawsuits. The drunk businessman who had knocked into her was nowhere to be seen, and the dangerous man was standing over Selam with water dripping from his ruined clothes, barking orders like he owned the world. Maybe he did. Hospital, he said to one of his men. Not a suggestion, not a question, an absolute command. Now, I am fine. Selam tried to stand, but her legs would not cooperate. They felt like they belonged to someone else. I do not need a hospital. I cannot afford. He silenced her with a look. Did I ask about payment? No, but... Then stop talking. The ambulance ride was a blur of warming blankets and oxygen masks and medical jargon she did not understand. But what she understood clearly was that the dangerous man was sitting beside her the entire time. His men followed in black SUVs. The paramedic spoke to him with deference that seemed excessive for a businessman. And when they arrived at the hospital, the staff responded to his presence with a kind of nervous respect that made Selam's suspicions grow. Who was this man? The diagnosis was mild hypothermia and a bruised rib from the impact. Nothing that time and rest would not heal. The doctor wanted to keep her overnight for observation, and before Selam could argue about the cost, before she could explain that she did not have insurance that would cover an overnight stay in a private room, the dangerous man had already arranged everything. A private room, flowers on the nightstand that she had not seen arrive, a nurse who checked on her every 30 minutes with a kind of attentiveness that Selam had never experienced in her life. This is unnecessary. She was wrapped in hospital blankets now, finally warm enough to form complete sentences. Her body had stopped shaking. Her mind was clearing. You have done enough. More than enough. He was standing by the window, his wet suit jacket draped over a chair, his white dress shirt transparent enough to reveal the muscles beneath. Someone had brought him dry clothes, but he had not changed yet, had not left her side. What is your name? He asked, ignoring her protest completely. Selam Tesfaye. Where are you from? Eritrea, a small country, and I know where Eritrea is. His eyes met hers, and something about his direct gaze made her pulse quicken. The Horn of Africa, Red Sea coastline, independence from Ethiopia in 1993. Capital city is Mara, known for its Italian colonial architecture. She blinked, genuinely surprised. Most people have never heard of it. I am not most people. He turned from the window and approached her bed, each step deliberate. Up close, even when disheveled, he was impossibly imposing. My name is Kang Jae-Hyun. I owe you an apology. For what? One of my associates caused your fall. His carelessness nearly killed you. That makes it my responsibility. It was an accident. No one owes me anything. Something flickered in his expression. Confusion, maybe? Surprise. Like he was not used to people refusing accountability when he offered it. You almost drowned, but I did not. Because of you. Selam pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. So if anything I owe you, you owe me nothing. Then we are even. The silence that followed was charged with something Selam could not name. Jae-Hyun was looking at her with that same calculating intensity from the restaurant, like she was a code he was trying to crack. Like everything she said was unexpected. The hospital bill, he said finally. His tone suggested he was not accustomed to being interrupted. The lost wages from recovery time. Your rent while you are unable to work. I will cover everything. No. His eyebrows rose slightly. The first crack in his composed exterior. No, I did not ask for your money. I do not want your money. Selam met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated by his wealth or his power or whatever he was. I am grateful you saved my life. Truly, but I am not a charity case, and I am not for sale. Everyone has a price. Then you have not met enough people. She smiled slightly, surprising even herself with a defiance. Thank you for jumping in after me. Thank you for this hospital room. But when I leave here tomorrow, we are done. You can go back to your business dinners and expensive suits, and I will go back to my life. No debts, no obligations, nothing. Jae-Hyun stared at her for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. Then, without another word, He turned and walked out of the room. Selam exhaled, sagging back against the pillows. Her heart was racing, though she could not quite understand why. Something about that man rattled her in ways she did not want to examine. She closed her eyes and tried to forget him. It did not work. 2 days later, the flowers arrived at her apartment. Selam lived in a small studio on the 4th floor of a building that did not have an elevator. The kind of place where the heating was unreliable and the walls were thin enough that she knew her neighbor's television schedule by heart. It was not much, but it was hers, a small piece of America that she had carved out for herself. The delivery man was sweating by the time he reached her door, and she understood why when she saw what he was carrying. An arrangement so massive he could barely hold it. Orchids and lilies and roses in every color imaginable, arranged in a crystal vase that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The card was simple, elegant, just a few words in precise handwriting, for a woman who could not be bought. Curious to know what else makes you remarkable. Kang Jae-Hyun. Selam stared at the flowers for a long time. They were beautiful. They were extravagant. They were completely inappropriate for her tiny apartment where they took up half the living space. She called her best friend Miriam. Kang Jae-Hyun? Miriam's voice was shrill with disbelief. The Kang Jae-Hyun? Selam, do you know who that is? A businessman with too much money and associates who do not watch where they're going. He is the head of the Kang family. Miriam's voice dropped to something between awe and horror. Korean Mafia, Selam, one of the most powerful organizations on the West Coast. He controls half the ports in Seattle and most of the import business. People who cross him disappear. Literally disappear. The temperature in Selam's apartment seemed to drop. You are joking. I am absolutely not joking. How do you not know this? I work double shifts and send money home to my mother. I do not exactly have time to follow organized crime gossip. Well, start now, because you are apparently on his radar. Miriam's voice softened with genuine concern. Be careful. Sel, men like that, they do not do anything without a reason. If he is interested in you, there is something he wants. He wants to pay off my hospital bills. I said no. You said no to a mafia boss? I said no to a man trying to buy my gratitude. Selam looked at the massive flower arrangement dominating her living room. There is a difference. But even as she said it, she was not entirely sure she believed it. 3 days after the flowers, Jae-Hyun appeared at her restaurant. Selam was back at work despite her bruised rib, because bills did not pay themselves and her mother's medication in as Martha was not free. The dialysis treatments cost more every month, and international wire transfers ate into everything she sent. She could not afford to take time off, could not afford to rest. She was carrying a tray of drinks to a table near the window when she felt it, that shift in atmosphere, that electric tension that had filled the terrace during the private dinner. She turned, and there he was, standing at the host's stand in another impeccable suit, his dark eyes already locked on her. Table for one, he told the confused hostess without looking at her. In Selam's section. Sir, we have a reservation system. I am not asking about reservations. He was seated in her section within 30 seconds. The hostess looked terrified. The manager looked curious. And Selam looked at the ceiling for a long moment, asking some higher power for patience. For the next 2 hours, he ordered sparingly, a salad, a glass of wine, sparkling water. He left tips that exceeded the cost of his meal by 300%, and he watched her work with an intensity that made her skin feel too tight for her body. When her shift ended, he was waiting outside. This is becoming concerning. Selam wrapped her jacket tighter against the evening chill. Are you following me? I am pursuing you. There is a difference. Is there? He fell into step beside her as she walked toward the bus stop. His presence was overwhelming. Too tall, too powerful, too much. Several people on the sidewalk actively moved out of their way, recognizing something in him that Selam was trying very hard to ignore. Why? She asked. You saved my life. I thanked you. We should be done. We should be. He said it like he agreed, like he understood how absurd this was. But I cannot stop thinking about you. Selam's heart stuttered despite herself. You do not know me. I know you are working double shifts to send money home to your mother in Eritrea. I know she has chronic kidney disease, and the treatments are expensive. I know you came to America on a scholarship for art school, but dropped out when she got sick because the money had to go somewhere else. I know you have not painted in 3 years, even though it is the only thing that makes you feel whole. She stopped walking, stared at him. You investigated me. I investigate everyone who enters my awareness. He stopped too, facing her on the sidewalk while Seattle moved around them. But you are the first person I have investigated who made me want to know more. Not as data, as a person. That is invasive. That is thorough. That is creepy. That is careful. A slight smile tugged at his lips, the first she had seen from him. It transformed his face in ways she did not want to notice. You are angry. Good. I would be disappointed if you were not. I am not entertainment for you. Selam's voice was sharper than she intended. I am not a puzzle to solve or a conquest to achieve. I am a person with a life and problems you cannot fix by throwing money at them. I know. The smile faded, replaced by something more serious. Something that looked almost vulnerable. That is why I am here. Not to fix you. To know you, if you will let me. Why? Because you refuse my money. He said it like it was the strangest thing in the world. Like she had performed a miracle. Twice. No one does that. Everyone wants something from me. Everyone has an angle. Everyone is looking for leverage. But you just want to go home and forget I existed. That is still what I want. I do not believe you. The words hung between them. And the terrible thing was, he was right. Selam did not want to forget him. Could not forget him. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt his arms around her in that freezing water, felt his heart hammering against her back, heard his voice commanding her to stay awake. One dinner. His voice softened. That is all I am asking. Let me know you as more than a file. Let you know me as more than a name people fear. If you still want nothing to do with me after that, I will disappear. You will never see me again. You promise? I do not make promises I cannot keep. Selam should have said no. Every logical bone in her body was screaming to refuse. This man was dangerous, powerful, part of a world she had no business entering. Her best friend had warned her. Her own instincts were warning her. But something else, something deeper and less rational, whispered a different answer. One dinner. She heard herself saying it before she could stop. That is it. His smile returned, slow and devastatingly beautiful. That is all I need. The first dinner was at an upscale restaurant downtown. The kind of place with cloth napkins and a wine list thicker than a novel. Selam wore her best dress, which was still clearly not expensive enough for a place like this, and refused to feel self-conscious about it. Jae-Hyun noticed anyway. You are uncomfortable. I am underdressed. You are the most beautiful woman in this room. The ones in designer gowns are looking at you trying to figure out your secret. Selam laughed despite herself. My secret is thrift stores and a good eye. There. He leaned forward slightly. That right there is why I wanted to know you. What? Your honesty. Most people would pretend they belonged here, would fake confidence, would try to impress me. You just admitted you bought your dress secondhand and did not care what I thought about it. Should I care? No. And that is exactly my point. The conversation that followed surprised her. He asked about Eritrea and actually listened when she described the coffee ceremonies and the injera bread and the way the streets of Asmara looked like Italian architecture preserved in amber. He asked about her family, and his eyes softened when she talked about her mother. He asked about her art, and she found herself describing projects she had abandoned, visions she had never shared with anyone. He was not what she expected. The cold, dangerous man from the restaurant was still there. She could see glimpses of him. But there was someone else underneath, someone who listened, someone who was genuinely interested, someone who made her feel seen in ways she had forgotten were possible. The dinner became 2, then 3, then weekly, then something Selam could not define but could not give up. By the 5th dinner, she had learned things about him that changed everything she thought she knew. His father had been murdered when Jae-Hyun was 19, forcing him to take over an empire he had never wanted. He had been raised for this life, but had dreamed of something different. Architecture. He admitted once, almost embarrassed, "I wanted to design buildings, create something lasting." "So why did you not?" Selam asked. "Duty." His voice was flat. "Obligation. My father was dead. My mother was devastated. The organization needed leadership or would have been consumed by rivals. I did not have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Do they?" He looked at her with those dark eyes, and for a moment she saw the boy he had been. Scared, grieving, trapped. When the people you love depend on you, when their survival is tied to your decisions, is it really a choice? She understood that more than she could say. She had given up her dreams too, abandoned art school, walked away from everything she wanted because her mother needed her, because the treatments were expensive and someone had to pay for them. "We are not so different," she said quietly. "No, we are not." The night of first kiss, they were at his penthouse, a stunning space overlooking the Sound, all clean lines and modern art, and evidence of wealth Selam could not comprehend. She had started coming here after dinners, staying later and later, finding reasons not to leave. They were on the balcony. The city lights glittered below like fallen stars. The water was a dark mirror, reflecting the moon. "Do you ever wish you had been someone else?" she asked. "Every day. But wishing does not change reality. What would you be, if you could choose?" "I do not know. I never had time to figure it out." He turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "What would you be?" "An artist. A real one, with galleries and exhibitions, and the freedom to create without wondering how I will pay rent. You should paint again. I should do a lot of things." "No." He turned to face her fully, his intensity making her pulse race. "Not should. Will. You will paint again, Selam. I will make sure of it. You cannot fix everything with money. This is not about money." He reached out, his fingers brushing her jaw with a tenderness that did not match his dangerous reputation. "This is about you having what you deserve, and you deserve to create. You deserve to be more than a woman working herself to death for other people. That is not your decision to make. Then make it yourself. Stop surviving and start living." His hand was still on her face. His eyes were burning into hers, and Selam felt something crack open in her chest. Something she had been protecting for so long she had forgotten it was there. "I am falling for you," she whispered, "and I do not know what to do about it." "Fall." His voice was rough with emotion. "I will catch you." When he kissed her, it felt like coming home to a place she had never been, like every moment of her life had been leading to this, to him, to this impossible connection that made no sense, and yet made all the sense in the world. She stayed that night, and the next, and somehow, without ever officially deciding, she moved into his world. The rumors started almost immediately. Korean businessman seen with African waitress. Kang Jae-Hyun's new arm candy. Mystery woman spotted leaving penthouse at dawn. The whispers were everywhere. At the restaurant where her co-workers treated her differently, some with envy, wondering what her secret was, how she had managed to catch the attention of one of the most powerful men in the city. Some with suspicion, assuming she must be doing something illegal or immoral. Some with outright hostility, the kind reserved for women who dare to rise above their station. In the Korean community, the disapproval was even more pronounced. Jae-Hyun's associates could not hide their disdain. The way they looked at her when she accompanied him to events. The conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. The pointed questions about her background, her education, her family. Everything designed to remind her that she did not belong. And in the tabloids that circulated among those who followed the city's elite, she was given a label that cut deeper than any of them knew. Secret lover. The implication was clear. She was temporary. An amusement. Something pretty for him to play with until he returned to his own kind. A phase he would outgrow. A mistake he would eventually correct. "They think I am using you." Selam said it one evening after a particularly vicious online comment found its way to her phone. Someone had taken a photo of them leaving a restaurant together and posted it with a caption about gold diggers and green cards. Let them think what they want. Jae-Hyun did not even look up from the business documents he was reviewing. It bothers me. Why? He set down his papers and looked at her properly. You know the truth. I know the truth. What anyone else believes is irrelevant. Easy for you to say. You are not the one they are calling a gold digger. You are not the one they are saying trapped a rich man with her body. You are not the one whose picture is being circulated with comments about African women and desperation. His expression darkened. Show me. What? Show me these comments. Show me who is saying these things. Why? So you can make them disappear? That is not how this works, Jae-Hyun. You cannot threaten everyone who says something cruel about me. That will only make it worse. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood from his desk and crossed to where she sat on the couch. He knelt in front of her like she was something precious, like she was the most important thing in his world. Selam, look at me. She looked. I do not care what they say. I care about you, about this. He took her hands in his. You are not temporary. You are not entertainment. You are not a phase. You are the first person who has ever made me feel like more than position or a duty. I love you. The words hit her like the water had. Sudden, shocking, life-altering. You love me? More than I knew I was capable of. His eyes were soft in a way she had never seen. I am not good at saying things like this. My world does not encourage vulnerability. But you deserve to know. You deserve to hear it every day for the rest of your life. I love you too. The words felt strange on her tongue. Not because they were not true, but because they were truer than anything she had ever said. I love you and it terrifies me. Be terrified with me. We will figure out together. For 3 beautiful months, they did. Jae-Hyun started the process of legitimizing his businesses, pulling away from the criminal elements that had defined his family for generations. It was slow work, dangerous work, but he was determined to build something that Selam could be part of without fear, something they could share without shame. And Selam started painting again. It happened because of him. Because one evening she came back to the penthouse after a long shift and found the spare room next to his office completely transformed. Professional easels stood against the walls. High-quality paints and brushes were organized on custom shelving. Canvases of every size were stacked in the corner. The lighting had been redesigned by someone who understood what artists needed. Natural light from a window she had not even known existed. Supplemental fixtures that mimicked daylight perfectly. It was everything an artist could dream of. You said if money was not an issue, you would paint. Jae-Hyun was leaning in the doorway, watching her reaction. So paint. This is too much. Selam's voice was choked with emotion. Her eyes were burning. Her chest felt too tight. It is just supplies. This is thousands of dollars worth of supplies. And I have thousands of dollars. He pushed off the doorway and came to stand beside her. I believe in your talent, Selam. I have seen the sketches you do when you think no one is watching. You are gifted. Do not waste that gift because the world made it hard to use it. She started painting that weekend. Massive canvases about the immigrant experience, about identity and belonging in home, about leaving everything you knew to build something new in a land that did not always want you, about carrying your culture with you while adapting to a new one, about the joy and pain and hope of it all. Jae-Hyun was her biggest supporter, her first viewer. He would come into the studio and watch her work, never interrupting, just being present. Sometimes he brought her coffee. Sometimes he brought her food when she forgot to eat. Sometimes he just sat in the corner reading documents while she painted, both of them comfortable in the silence. They were building a life together, blending their worlds. Selam taught Jae-Hyun how to make Eritrean dishes. He taught her Korean phrases. They had date nights at restaurants that spanned continents. They had quiet evenings at home where they cooked together and talked about everything and nothing. They had mornings where Selam would wake up in his arms and feel safer than she had ever felt in her life. They talked about the future, about marriage, about building something new together, about what their life could look like if they were brave enough to reach for it. It was perfect And then Yoon Mireille arrived. Selam was at the penthouse, alone, when the elevator doors opened and a woman stepped out. She was stunning, the kind of beauty that made you catch your breath. Tall and elegant, with porcelain skin and the kind of refined features that spoke of wealth and breeding. Her clothes were impeccable, a traditional hanbok in silk, so fine it seemed to float around her. Her hair was styled in a perfect chignon. Diamond earrings caught the light. Everything about her screamed money and status and belonging. And her eyes, when they landed on Selam, were cold enough to freeze fire. So you are her. The woman's English was accented but perfect. The African waitress. Selam stood slowly. She had been painting. There was still a brush in her hand. Who are you? Yoon Mireille. The woman smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Jae-Hyun's fiancé. The word hit like a physical blow. Ex-fiancé. He told me about you. Did he tell you everything? He told me enough. Then did he tell you I am pregnant? The brush fell from Selam's hand. It clattered against the hardwood floor, leaving a small streak of blue paint. Everything else faded into background noise. The city sounds from outside, the hum of the climate control, her own heartbeat, which had suddenly become deafening. What? For months along. Mireille's smile widened. She placed a hand on her still flat stomach in a gesture that was almost maternal. His child, which means this little fantasy of yours is over. Everything after that was a blur. Mireille produced ultrasound photos from her designer handbag, black and white images with dates and measurements and medical terminology that Selam did not understand. She told a story about a night several months ago when she and Jae-Hyun had reconnected at a business event in Seoul, about how they had spent the night together, about how she had only recently discovered the pregnancy, about how she had come to claim what was rightfully hers. He was going to marry me, Mireille said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, before you distracted him. Our families have been planning this union for years. It was always meant to be. And now with a child, it has to be. You understand, do you not? Selam understood nothing. Her mind was static. Her heart was breaking, and she could not breathe. When Jae-Hyun came home that evening, Mireille was gone, but Selam was still frozen in place. She had not moved, had not cleaned up the paint on the floor, had not done anything except sit on the couch and stare at the ultrasound photo Mireille had left behind. What is wrong? Jae-Hyun's voice was immediate with concern. He crossed to her in 3 strides. Selam, talk to me. What happened? She did not accuse, did not scream, just held up the ultrasound photo and asked one question. Is it true? The expression on his face told her everything she needed to know. Shock first. Pure, unfiltered shock. Then horror. Then something that looked terrifyingly like guilt. Selam, listen to me. Is it true? The event in Seoul happened, but nothing else. I did not. We did not. He was stumbling over words, something she had never seen him do. She is lying. She has to be lying. She has photos, Jae-Hyun. Ultrasounds. Evidence. Evidence can be fabricated. Why would she fabricate this? Because she wants me back. Because her family has been pressuring for this marriage for years. Because they see an opportunity and they are taking it. Because he reached for her and Selam stepped back. His face crumbled. Do not, please do not pull away from me. I need space. Her voice was barely a whisper. I need time to think. There is nothing to think about. I love you. Only you. Whatever she is claiming, it is not true. Then prove it. He tried. Over the next week, Jae-Hyun launched a full investigation. His people dug into Mireille's claims. They tracked her movements. They analyzed the ultrasound images. They interviewed everyone who had been at the Seoul event. But every piece of evidence seemed to support her story. The Seoul event had happened. Jae-Hyun had been there. They had been seen talking. They had been photographed together. And the timeline, the terrible timeline, matched up perfectly with a 4-month pregnancy. Doubt grew despite his protests, despite his denials, despite the way he looked at her with desperation in his eyes. And the Korean community was exploding with the news. Kang Jae-Hyun pregnant by ex-fiancée. The African waitress revealed as temporary distraction, the scandal of a lifetime, the story that everyone had been waiting for. Selam's co-workers stopped talking when she entered rooms at the restaurant. Her landlord started asking questions about how she could afford her apartment on a waitress salary. Her neighbors looked at her differently. Everything was falling apart. Then Miriam called with a warning that was impossible to ignore. His mother is coming from Seoul. Miriam's voice was heavy with sympathy. To officially welcome Mireille back into the family. To plan the wedding. The wedding. That night, Selam made a decision. She waited until Jae-Hyun fell asleep. He had been working 18-hour days trying to disprove Mireille's claims, trying to find the evidence that would vindicate him. He was exhausted in a way she had never seen. The stress was eating at him. He was losing weight, losing sleep, losing the peace they had found together. And she knew it was because of her. She watched him sleep, memorized the lines of his face, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the way his chest rose and fell with each breath, the way his hand reached for her even in sleep, pulling her closer. She loved him. God, she loved him so much it felt like dying. But she could not watch him destroy himself. Could not be the reason his world fell apart. Could not stand between a father and his child. Even if every fiber of her being screamed that Mireille was lying. So she packed a bag in the dark. Just the essentials. Just what she had come with. And she wrote a letter. The words came slowly. Each one was agony. I believe you do not remember anything happening with her. But I also cannot prove it did not. And as long as there is a child, your child, I cannot be the woman who stands between a father and his family. I love you. That has not changed. But loving you does not mean I get to take you from a child who needs you. Does not mean I get to ignore responsibility because it is convenient for my heart. Please do not look for me. Please be the father that baby deserves. Please remember that for a few beautiful months, I was the happiest I've ever been. Goodbye, Jae-Hyun. Selam. She placed the letter on her pillow, looked at him one last time, and walked away from everything she loved. The next 3 weeks were the darkest of Selam's life. She stayed with Miriam, who hid her well. Her friend had a small apartment in a neighborhood where no one would think to look for her, where she could disappear into anonymity and try to piece herself back together. She ignored the calls, hundreds of them, from Jae-Hyun's personal phone, from his office, from numbers she did not recognize. She ignored the texts, desperate messages that ranged from pleading to angry to heartbroken. Please answer. I love you. Do not do this. I can prove she is lying. Give me time. Selam. I am begging you. She ignored the men who appeared at her former workplace asking questions, ignored the notices that showed up at her old apartment, ignored everything and everyone connected to Kang Jae-Hyun, and she tried desperately to stop loving him. It did not work. Every morning she woke up reaching for him. Every night she dreamed of his voice. Every moment she was not actively distracted. Her mind returned to him, to his smile, to his touch, to the way he had looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. She was shattered, broken in ways she had not known she could be broken. 3 weeks after she left, Miriam burst through her bedroom door at midnight. Get up. Now. There is someone here you need to see. Selam stumbled into the living room in her pajamas, her eyes swollen from crying, her hair a mess. And there, standing by the door with a folder in his hands, was a man she recognized. Park, Jae-Hyun's chief of security, the one who had always treated her with quiet respect. Miss Tesfaye. His voice was formal but urgent. Mr. Kang asked me to bring you this. He said you would not listen to him, but you might listen to evidence. Evidence of what? The truth. He held out the folder. Selam took it with shaking hands. Inside was everything. Medical records from a clinic in Seoul. The same clinic that had produced Mireille's ultrasound. Except these records showed something different. They showed that the ultrasound had been purchased, fabricated, created by a facility that specialized in providing fake pregnancy documentation for clients who were willing to pay. Phone records spanning months, showing coordinated contact between Mireille and her family. Messages about reclaiming Jae-Hyun. about driving away the African woman, about using whatever means necessary to restore the alliance between the families. Witness statements from people who had been at the Seoul event, confirming that Jae-Hyun had left before 10 p.m., alone, that he had not stayed with Mireille, that nothing had happened between them, and a DNA test, arranged through Jae-Hyun's private physician, proving conclusively that Mireille was not pregnant at all, had never been pregnant. The entire thing was an elaborate fabrication designed to destroy the relationship between Selam and the man she loved. She confessed. Park said quietly, under pressure, the family wanted the alliance, wanted the money and power that comes with being connected to the Kang organization. They created the pregnancy story to drive you away and force him back to his obligations. Selam's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the papers. Where is he? The Seattle Art Museum. There is a private exhibition tonight. Your paintings, Miss Tesfaye. The ones from the penthouse. He arranged it anonymously 6 weeks ago, before any of this happened. What? He believed in you. Still believes in you. Park's expression softened slightly. He is there now, waiting. He said if you came, it meant you were ready to listen. If you did not, he would understand. Selam was out the door before he finished speaking. The museum was quiet at midnight. The public had long gone. The galleries were dark and empty, except for the security guard who let her in through a side entrance. This way, Miss Tesfaye. He seemed to know exactly who she was, exactly where she needed to go. She walked through darkened galleries, past sculptures and installations and paintings by artists whose names she had studied in school. Her footsteps echoed in the empty spaces. Her heart pounded with every step, and then she found the right wing. Her paintings. 12 canvases, each one illuminated by perfect gallery lighting. The work she had created in his penthouse during the happiest months of her life. Stories of immigrants and identity, of love that crossed boundaries, of finding home in unexpected places. They looked different here, more powerful, more real. Seeing them on museum walls, treated with the same reverence as the masterpieces in the other galleries, made her breath catch. 3 paintings stood out among the rest. Found an abstract representation of 2 figures in water, one pulling the other toward the surface. Light breaking through darkness. Salvation in the most unexpected moment. Family. 3 figures intertwined. Korean patterns blending with Eritrean designs. Cultures merging into something new. Something beautiful. Sacrifice. A figure walking away from light into darkness. Love and loss captured in brushstrokes. The pain of leaving. The weight of what it cost. And standing in front of sacrifice, his back to her, his hands in his pockets, was Jae-Hyun. He turned when he heard her footsteps. Even in the dim light, she could see the exhaustion etched into his face. The weight he had been carrying. The hope he was trying not to show. You came. I came. Did you read the file? I read it. She stopped a few feet away from him. Close enough to touch, but not touching. Why did you not tell me you were arranging this? Because I wanted it to be a surprise. Because I wanted you to see yourself the way I see you. Extraordinary. Talented. Worthy of everything the world has to offer. He paused. And because I did not know if you would ever let me give you anything again. I left you. You were protecting yourself. Protecting what you thought was my child. Even while your heart was breaking. You were trying to do the right thing. His voice cracked slightly. How could I be angry at that? I should have trusted you. You should have. But I understand why you did not. My world is full of lies and manipulations. I cannot blame you for believing one more. Selam looked at the painting behind him, at the 2 figures in the water, the beginning of everything. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. I never stopped fighting for you. He stepped closer, close enough now that she could feel his warmth. And I will not stop, whatever it takes. However long it takes, I will prove to you that this is real, that I am real, that you are the only woman I want now and forever. What about Mireille? Her family? Dealt with. They have been made to understand that any further interference will have consequences they cannot afford. His eyes hardened briefly, then softened again when they returned to her face. You are not a distraction, Selam. You are not temporary. You are my future, if you will have me. He dropped to one knee. Selam's heart stopped. From his pocket, he produced a ring, not a massive diamond, not an ostentatious display of wealth. A simple band of hammered gold set, with a red stone the color of Eritrean sunsets. This belonged to my grandmother. His voice was quiet, reverent. The only woman in my family who ever married for love instead of duty. I had been carrying it for 2 months, waiting for the right moment. He looked up at her, and his eyes were shining. Selam Tesfaye, you taught me that strength is not about power. It is about choosing love when walking away would be easier. Choose me, marry me, let me spend the rest of my life proving I am worthy of you. Selam was crying, had been crying since she saw the paintings, since she understood what had been building for her, even while his world was falling apart. Yes, she said. The word felt like jumping from a terrace, like falling into cold water, like being caught by someone who would never let go. Yes, I will marry you. I will love you. I will fight for this with you. He stood and pulled her into his arms and kissed her like she was the only thing that mattered, like they had never been apart, like they had just begun. They married 3 months later. The ceremony blended Korean and Eritrean traditions in ways that made both cultures shine. The wedding party wore hanboks and abeshakemis. The food included bulgogi and zigni. The music moved from traditional Korean melodies to Eritrean love songs that made Selam's mother cry with joy. Her mother had flown in from Asmara, healthy now, stronger than she had been in years, thanks to the treatments that Jae-Hyun had secretly been funding for the past year. He had never told Selam, had never asked for credit, had just quietly made sure the woman he loved would not lose her mother. His mother came from Seoul, disapproving at first, cold, distant, but gradually, slowly, she was won over by the woman who made her son happier than she had ever seen him. By the end of the wedding, she was holding Selam's hands and welcoming her to the family with tears in her eyes. The wedding was covered by every media outlet in the city, the African artist and the Korean billionaire, the love story that survived drowning in deception and everything else the world threw at them. The proof that love could cross any boundary if you were brave enough to fight for it. 2 years later, they had a daughter, Hannah, a name that meant one in Korean and happiness in several other languages. The one thing that brought them both happiness beyond measure. She had her father's dark eyes and her mother's smile and a spirit that was entirely her own. Selam's art career flourished. Her exhibitions sold out before they opened. Her story inspired immigrants everywhere. Proof that you could honor your roots while growing new ones. Proof that your dreams did not have to die just because life got hard. And Jae-Hyun, the dangerous man with the cold eyes, became known for something else entirely, being a devoted husband who could not stop smiling whenever his wife walked into a room, being the father who left meetings early for his daughter's recitals, being the man who had chosen love over everything else and never once regretted it. They built a home together, filled it with laughter and art and the beautiful chaos of a family that chose each other every single day. Because that is what Selam learned the night she fell into the water and was caught by impossible arms. That the smallest moments can change everything. That love finds you when you least expect it. That home is not a place. It is a person, and she had found hers. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments what moment hit you hardest. Was it the drowning? The fake pregnancy reveal? The museum proposal? I want to hear from you. And subscribe for more stories about love that crosses every boundary, that fights through every obstacle, that proves family is what you make it. Drop a heart if you believe in love that chooses you every single day. See you in the next story. And remember, you never know when someone might fall into your life, or when you might fall into theirs.